good morning, everybody, to this week's edition of Marketing Crew. And last week, we talked about the importance of digital traffic and measurement out of the session that Ollie and Andrew did. The overriding feeling was that we needed to know more about traffic where it relates to our digital assets and digital presence. That was really key, because you can have a digital presence wherever, but if there's nobody going to it, you're rather talking to yourself. And secondly, the importance of measurement, so you know what your website and other areas are doing. And I know Andrew and Ollie have agreed to do a follow-up focused on that, but because of various circumstances, it wasn't fair or possible to get those guys really prepared, because I think you'll all agree they did an excellent job, very thorough. So I decided we're going to do that next week. Is that right, guys? Good. And I decided that rather than just go off at a tangent, we ought to really discuss the whole subject of traffic, not necessarily digital traffic. We ought to discuss how we're getting people, how we're getting in front of our audience, either one-way traffic or how we're drawing people in front of us, and how we may be measuring that. And what I want to do is I want to share some slides here. I've got some interesting things to just begin with. Okay, traffic. I've entitled this session Traffic and Effectiveness, not how busy we are, not how tired we are at the end of the day or the end of the week. And we all suffer from that, me included. But how effective we've been on reflection, or how effective we intend to be. At the beginning of the year, Rob gave us a great session on work-life balance. And I think I've commented before, and the fact that having not enough time is an excuse. It's a thing that a lot of people do when they say that they've not done something, or they have New Year resolutions, or they have intentions, but then they use not having enough time as an excuse. And I make no apologies for saying not having enough time is an excuse. So it's a perfectly valid excuse, but it's an excuse, because if we say we don't have enough time, it's all about how we allocate our time to the clearly defined priorities that we've established. In other words, the issue is not time, the issue is priorities. What are we giving our focus? What are we giving our attention to? And I think that Rob, that really doesn't have to be all business. In fact, Rob, in his session, suggested, and he's quite right, and it certainly got me reflected on the way I use my time, that life is life is about work and life and enjoying life. And you've got to think, why am I here? And what am I doing? Where am I headed? Okay, I'm busy, but busy doing what? Going where? And I think that is the issue. So it doesn't have to be all about business. It's deciding how much time that you want to do that. I read something this morning, or yesterday rather, that I think Portugal are introducing, along with Iceland, and I think New Zealand have introduced they're trialing a 4-day week. And a lot of businesses are up in arms, but frankly, it's a matter of rearranging things. Maybe that is the way we all ought to be going, a 4-day week. And people will want to work 7 days a week. There are those people now, and there's people that work less. So deciding where you want your life to be and what balance you want, I think, is key. So predetermines what I'm about to say. At the core, as I leave my lounge, I've got a number of family photographs, and I have a postcard I sent to myself of a meme that I had taken, and I sent it to myself. And it just reminds me, as often as I look at it, in the absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it. That's the trivia. It's hard to identify it of ourselves. So the question that we've got to really answer us to begin with is, how do we spend our day? How do we spend our week? Some interesting stats from America I saw the other day. And these stats were, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American works 8.8 hours a day. And a study of nearly 2,000 full-time office workers revealed that most people aren't actually working for most of the time they're at work. They're working for about just over 3 hours a day, actually working. And this is what the survey revealed. And I know it's in an office and we're not in an office environment, but it's got to give us time to start thinking about how we spend our time during the week. This is what they were doing. 45% of people responded to this. Reading news and websites, average 1 hour, 55 minutes. Checking social media, I thought that'd be longer than that, but nearly an hour, 44 minutes, 47%. So they were two very high number of people do these two things at work. Discussing non-work related stuff with co-workers, about 40 minutes. I suppose that's chatting at the coffee machine or whatever. Searching for new jobs. That's interesting. 19%, nearly 20% of people in offices were searching for new jobs while attempting to pursue the one they've got. They spent 26 minutes doing that. Goodness me, what does that say? Because I suppose when they go to a new job, they'll be doing the same after a while. It shows you about a loyalty that, or maybe shows you that 20% of people are not really satisfied doing what they're doing. And that could apply to us, of course. Taking smoke breaks, well, that's only for the people that are smokers, and 28% would reflect the number of smokers, maybe. 23 minutes taken. And then the last 5 were making calls to partners or friends, 18 minutes, quarter of the people polled did that. Making hot drinks, 17 minutes. Texting or instant messaging, 14 minutes. So if you do calls and messaging, that's 20. 32 minutes, half an hour, looking at their phone, doing those things. Eating snacks, not sure. You could still work when you're eating a bag of crisps, I suppose. So I think it's a bit spurious, that. And making food in the office, 7 minutes. And again, that's to do with making hot drinks, etc. So they attempted to analyze how people are using their time while they're at work. And we might say, well, all of these things are very valid for ourselves, but given that we've said that if you want your business to grow, and I'd suggest if you want your business to stay static, if you don't do anything, it will go backwards. We need to be taking as many people as possible through this pipeline, reaching out to traffic, using traffic or finding traffic to get in front of an audience, to create a lead that we then connect with. We qualify that lead in whatever method, and somehow we make a presentation, we follow up, and we make a sale. And the more people we take through that, the more. So it'd be interesting how much of our time in the week is spent doing precisely that, talking to prospects, connecting with people, finding out where they're at, and with a number of those people, making presentations. So I've had a recent conversation with Marcus, and we talked about these very issues. And I think Marcus will probably lead off and confirm that it's very difficult to change habits that we have. I find it just as difficult as everybody else. But we suggested on the concept of a power hour, a daily power hour, taking people through this. In other words, whatever else we were doing, setting aside an hour a day, it's not very much. Well, finding an hour every day to reach out to people. We called it a daily power hour. So I'm going to stop that share. This is where I always have the challenge. There we go. Stop the share. So I'm going to open up the discussion for that. I think the survey just served 2 just focuses on how we're spending our week and are we satisfied with that, and how do we measure it, and what do we set, etc. Does anybody else want to open that as a conversation before I pick on somebody? Marcus, Rod.
Well, I mean, I think, I have a defined week, and it's interesting that I try and keep weekends to myself these days, and do whatever I want to do. But I had a very, very large, expensive, valuable lesson that I learned yesterday, and that's around education. And the education, nothing to do with, well, it is to do with me because it's my fault. But I inform the people that answer my telephone that I wouldn't really be available during this time and that time, because I had 2 funerals to deliver yesterday. Sometimes you can give these people too much information, and then of course they relay that information to the client phoning in. So someone rings me up and says, my mother's died, I need someone to move my mother's body from a nursing home. Now, a nursing home can't actually hold on to a body for very long because obviously they haven't got the facilities to. So my people answering the phone could have said, don't worry, Rod will be on the phone to you shortly, and he'll deal with that straight away. Don't worry about it at all. But instead of that, they said he's busy on 2 funerals, which obviously didn't really help. Now, these are experienced, very professional people that answer my phone, and they've never let me down. And in fact, they haven't let me down. I let myself down by not giving them the understanding of what a nursing home particularly wants and needs. So that cost me £1,000.
Well, it's interesting because whoever is front facing to a customer is in sales, and the fact that you've picked up on that is good. Really, it's been it's because I know how very keen you are on training, and your guys yesterday were saying how you are a cut above any other funeral directors that they've worked with because they never get any training in the other places. But I want to come back to the week. How do we spend our week? I mean, how do we, what do we spend most of our week doing? Marcus, you and I had a conversation, and we thought a really good idea to reach out to existing clients, and you got some success with that. But how have you found that doing the power hour?
Yeah, it does work really, really well when you've got, allocating time blocks to what you're doing. And, I've got myself a little timer, and I can time, and I find that really helps work for me, that, that Pomodoro method or whatever you're going to use. The difficulty that I face, I think, in my doing photography is it's so variable. One day can really change so much. And, you get a plan for the week, and then all of a sudden you get a couple of shoots in and it's completely gone. So that's the difficulty that I've faced. And do you know what? I think I've been doing it like 20 years or whatever. I think I've always faced that difficulty, really. I've got no solution to it. Unless maybe, I don't know what Nick does. Do you just do shoots only on certain days and then allocate the rest? What do you know?
I think, like you, Marcus, I think you have to go with the client requirements, don't you? If the client needs you on a certain day, then you've got to shift your plan around it, or run the risk of losing the client. But no, I think like you, I think structuring some time to actually chunk and focus on particular tasks works really well. I did try doing it once with Clockify, and then I found that Clockify was running my life. So, because it just becomes another software package that you end up kind of, it's a bit like a Tamagotchi. So I think your approach of maybe just using a really simple Pomodoro approach and chunking your time into different tasks is a better way of doing it. Don't overcomplicate it with all the tech. Just and be mindful if you're kind of a bit like me, maybe there's the risk that you can disappear down a rabbit hole because you find something interesting on the internet. Sometimes I turn off notifications so the distractions aren't there, because I know that sometimes something can come into my inbox, pings up on the screen, and I'm off. And I've lost half an hour. So now when I'm really focused in on something, a bit like your power hour, I turn off notifications and I turn off my phone so that nothing can take me off in a different direction. And that seems to work most of the time.
Andrew?
Just on Nick saying about distractions, I've got into this habit of putting my phone on silent. So my the rings on a volume. So if somebody actually calls me, I'll hear it. Unless I'm rocking out, obviously, and that happens. But everything else is on silent, so don't hear, because it's like, oh, what's that? What's that? And you're jumping out of, when you get into flow, that's when you do your best work, and it just distracts you all the time. And that's proved to be quite a good habit. And the other thing that I had a lot of trouble with, and I've sort of gone backwards a little bit since Christmas, but I'm like cognizant of it, and I'm really putting things in place, is meetings. Meetings get peppered in all over the shop, and that causes me a lot of issues with regards to trying to actually get the graph done. So what I tried to do at the end of last year was I've tried to do meetings at the end of the day, and that worked quite well, actually. I did try like having a day where I do it, but it just doesn't, it's not flexible enough for people. So no, just at the end of the day, like 3-4 o'clock, something like that, that seems to help as well, and it allows me to actually sit and do the work. Because then it becomes an issue where you're trying to do the work and you're trying to communicate with people, and you've got people phoning up saying, oh, could we do this? And it's like, yeah. It's just because you end up all over the shop. So I'm trying to get back onto my late meetings sort of thing at the moment. But yeah, definitely turn your phone down and things like that. That's worked really well, actually.
You can't, if you're on Apple, they've got a schedule that will actually shut off all notifications except those that you specify during certain hours. Giving an answer to Marcus, if you're out all day on a shoot, that is your priority. That's where you earn your money from. So there's no question you can't interrupt that at all. But it's all the other times what we spend our time doing. And I'm as guilty as that, because I'm naturally curious. Last night I saw some amazing video messaging software, and I'm dying to get a trial of it and have a go. Is that my priority? Actually, it falls within my priority, so I've got an excuse. But if it didn't, my curiosity would spend a bit of time doing that and playing around with it. And as you say, Nick, some of us are very prone to a bit of software here and a bit of software there, and will this be the answer to all my challenges? And it just consumes more and more time if we're not careful. Ollie.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to those stats on the first slide you showed, Paul, when I used to work in an office, and I think of bloody hell, all the time which was wasted not doing work and anything else. And I think when you're on someone else's money, it's it's an easier opportunity to kind of sit and scroll through Facebook for an hour or do other stuff. Whereas I definitely find working for myself, I don't have that luxury anymore. I'd quite fancy just sitting and doing nothing and getting paid for it. But obviously you can't kind of do that. But yeah, I think Marcus might have mentioned, or you pulled this power hour a week or so ago, and I quite like that idea of using it not necessarily to kind of reach out for new leads, but to do the priority things that I've got on my task list that I know maybe won't take more than an hour or so. But if I've got to like make a phone call or add this to someone's website, using that hour in the morning sort of when I'm feeling most productive to make sure I get those things done. So yeah, I found that really useful. And interestingly, I'm actually doing a workshop as someone locally setting it up tomorrow for managing your time and workload. So it kind of ties in quite nicely with this, I thought.
Yeah. Anne-Marie, you've got even more of an issue than most people have. You're getting a business off the ground, you're running a business, successful business, you're dealing with clients, and you're a mum. So how do you, what's your approach to all this?
Alcohol.
Alcohol.
That's got to be answer of the month, hasn't it?
Alcohol, what's the question?
Alcohol. Yeah, exactly. Oh, God. If only I knew. If I had the answer, I would have been here on time today. I think I'm a bit like everybody else. I'm very, very, very good at procrastinating. And I didn't realise quite how good I was at it until I started my own company. So I do the whole, oh, well, if I have this piece of software, or if I have this notebook, or if I have this whatever, then everything will be brilliant. So you spend all your time researching it because it's fun. So I've just started, I think what you were saying, Andrew, I've been doing for a little while is with my calendar, I deliberately block out either the morning or the afternoon of each day so that there is a section of each day that can't be booked by clients unless it's, desperate. And that works really well because that means that I don't get too many meetings generally in a day. But it's something that I'm definitely working on. I have used the Pomodoro thing that Marcus was talking about, and I found that really, really good. But then I gave it up about a week or 2 weeks in because I got a bit fed up of having to stop every 45 minutes or whatever it was. So no, I don't really have the answers. I wish I did, because I know that I could be a lot more productive than I currently am being.
I think sometimes when we search out productivity hacks, we're really trying to do more. We're trying to fill our time with more stuff, which comes back to what was mentioned in an earlier meeting, is what is our priority? Because if you determine your priorities first, determine which are the priorities are just not movable. What do we want to achieve? And it's different for all of us. And you put those in absolute cement, that is non-negotiable. That's a priority. So if a weekend, no business, turn it all off, which is not easy for a funeral director. It's not easy for anybody working on their own, I think, entrepreneur, because if you're working from home, work morphs into every day. And I found myself guilty. I don't mind working Saturdays and Sundays if thought work and doing things on the computer. But even I, since Rob's presentation, have been just not doing any of that. Ollie has inspired Marcus even to write a blog about it, a Bulletproof Journal. How has that helped? And does it help? I mean, or is it another piece of software to look at?
Well, I've only just started it, but I have been reading the book. I'm halfway through the book, and it's just started a method today or yesterday. I'm going to hand over to Ollie because he's an expert in it, but I think it's really good. Really
Funny
good.
enough, that book came up on my Amazon recommendations yesterday.
Yeah. Ollie, tell us all about it. It is very good.
Yeah, I mean, I found it's massively changed the way I kind of work and do things. And yeah, it's because it does what you kind of said, Paul, is that you kind of, so each night I'll kind of maybe write out what my tasks are for tomorrow, things like that, that's in my head. So I'm not thinking about them. It's not kind of disrupting my sleep. And you can prioritize one, say put an asterisk, if there's one thing, like you say, Paul, that's non-negotiable that I must do this tomorrow, for example, at the weekend might be my tax return, was kind of like a priority thing that had to be done. And yeah, although like, I think, yeah, aware of what Anne-Marie's saying about adding too many things to, like too many tools, I think it just becomes quite challenging. Then for me, it feels like there's too many things then to figure out and manage, whereas doing the journaling is a really quite a therapeutic thing to do. And yeah, it feels natural as well, nice because it's not on the computer, so it's doing it away from there, and the act of writing it down by hand as well kind of dodges it more in my brain about things too. But yeah, I find it really, really useful for kind of just keeping a tab of, where I am with certain projects, if I need to call people, yeah, and anything. I mean, I use it not just for work, but for personal things as well. So it kind of, the two run side by side. So it's quite a nice overview of what I'm doing. But the great thing, which sort of talked to Marcus about, is this reflection where go back and read through it. So either, the night, in the evening, I'll read through what I've done during the day, end of the week, end of the month, end of the year even. And it's really lovely because you get a real insight into how you've spent your time. So I can look at it and I think, I've spent far too much of my time doing this thing or not enough doing that. And it's a real good opportunity to then reevaluate sort of processes. And I think the big one for me was that work-life balance, and so yeah, it's definitely been a really good tool, and yeah, been great to share it with Marcus actually.
I'm very tempted to get that book actually yesterday, because I like things arriving from Amazon, I suppose. But I'm trying to go away from, I'm an avid list. I think, so I don't forget anything, I'll write a list and the list gets very long, and, I've got different ways in which I prepare those lists, and I end up spending most of my time working through tasks that are not taking me to where I want to be, because I've not set the priorities. And I think we try and manage time by whatever method, whether it's electronic, whether it's non-electronic. And I, like you, Ollie, I prefer to write things down. I do have things, all my diary are electronic because it's there with me. But then at the end, every couple of days, I'll transfer that onto a Moleskine diary, because I like to be able to take that and open it up. I think there's something cathartic about, very satisfying about writing. But again, I list the answers. If part of our goal is to develop our business, to earn the money, to have a lifestyle, it's a tricky balance, because, and I haven't forgotten you, Rod, I'll come to you in a second, it's a tricky balance that, you end up working many, many hours with not the time to enjoy the fruits of that labor. Now, it could be said that you've got to do that to begin with, not necessarily all your life. You've got to do that and set something in so that you can enjoy time. But again, what are the priorities? Is the priority making a list and completing a list? I'm not being rude there at all. Is that our priority? Or is the priority to take people through that? Is it about relationships? Is it about connection, staying in touch? And we've previously agreed that, but unless we include that in our week, either in our power hour, and it doesn't have to, I say a power hour a day shouldn't be difficult, but often it is. I'll say to Marcus, and we've agreed to keep each other accountable. I haven't done it. I haven't kept to that. So, but because power hour is on my sheet, I've got 3 things on the sheet now. Well, 2 things, but at the top of it is that power hour. In other words, today, who am I going to reach out to? Who am I going to stay in touch? Who am I going to reconnect with? How am I going to get a message out? All of that is to do with the 2 areas I've decided are a priority for me at my time of my life. Rod, you had a point.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I've heard from Ollie there, you're keeping a diary. I mean, I have a great big A4 diary. I use that every single day. I look back at the week. I look forward to the following week. I got probably indoctrinated in the army, and so when I worked for Piccadilly Radio, Owen Oyston was, what have you done last week? What are you going to do next week? What is your achievement for this week? And God help you if you didn't achieve it, you were fired. It's simple as that. And then I have a calendar on my wall that shows me when I'm doing funerals or whatever the most important thing priority is to me during the month. And I also look back at the previous year. What was I doing at this time last year? And the only constant I've got is my Wednesday market. So it's a strange sort of combination of a lot of things, but I think you're right. Writing something down does actually get it off your chest, as it were, or out of your mind. And I know it helps me. I know if I don't write a note down, I used to sleep with a notepad by my bed once. I've stopped doing that now because I found that a diary does the same thing. But sometimes if it's on the top of your mind,
I probably know your business than I know anybody else's. And yesterday, when I was there with you, I was looking at he's got 2 big A boards, and one of them is the number of funerals by month that he's done. And I think you're online. I think you're online for over 100. If you continue like you did in January, you'll have over 100 this year. But on the other board, and I'm saying, what's that? And Barry was scrubbing a name out, and it's exactly where everybody is placed in the fridge, who's where, and on what rack. Now, you might think it's a bit overboard, that. You should know that because the name is on the coffin. But nevertheless, it's being organized. So some lists are important. But again, coming back to what the priority is. What are our priorities? And the trouble is, when we're keeping list and we've got so much going on, we lose sight of those priorities. So what overtakes is I don't have the time to do everything. And that can lead to dissatisfaction, it can lead to frustration, and it can lead to mental issues, I'm told. Ollie.
Oh, yeah, agree. I think it's about being, you can have a list and feel quite overwhelmed, you know, if I put absolutely everything down and to do a day. And I went for a phase of sort of reply to email from such and such, reply to email from such and such, and it just got a bit much. But I think for me, it's kind of having this, like so, having a goal that you're working towards. So I've got this one where I want to, if I'm calling it 4x40. So by the time I'm 40 in a couple of years' time, I want to be working 4 days a week. And that's the kind of goal that I'm working towards. And so I'm trying to use my journal, my notebook to kind of work towards that. So talking about something, you know, one thing every day that I could do that could possibly work towards that goal that I want to have. And even if it's, you know, a tiny little thing that might seem insignificant, that will help towards that goal. And so being a bit more, using it in that way. So having a really clear sort of goal rather than, so yeah, a combination of like just jotting things down, but also having this target that I'm working towards and then trying to align some of the tasks I do each day to move towards that target, if that makes sense.
It does. Are you including in there all the tasks and all the things you do that, frankly, somebody of your talent and experience should not be doing? I think what stops us maybe from doing that is we think we can't afford it. And probably we can't to begin with, but it wouldn't stop us from saying, I really shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing that. I should be delegating this. Because that's the only way you're going to get down to 4 days a week, I would have thought. Unless you just take on less clients. Martin, you've got a point.
I remember going to a talk once and somebody saying that you structure your day like a jar, and you fill the jar with boulders, like big tasks, and then you fill around with sand, so the smaller tasks, but you sort of set out times where you have these big tasks rather than procrastinating and putting them off. You kind of get stuck in, and quite often I feel overwhelmed and I just think, no, I'm going to concentrate on this task and just do that. So, and also I would love to have, I'm using Zero projects, so I can set my timer when I'm working on a project, and then I can invoice straight from, so I'm trying to put in useful systems rather than I do have like hundreds of apps. And I think, sometimes they waste time, but sometimes they're very useful. And I would love to be able to outsource some of the stuff, social media, or that would be great.
I think deciding what to outsource can often be inhibited by what we enjoy doing. I know I'll do things that frankly I should not be doing, but I enjoy doing them. And that may be a case of procrastination, I don't know. Now, it was Andrew first, then Nick, and then Anne-Marie.
Yeah, just to pick up on what Ollie was saying about, and Martin, about sort of delegating stuff out, and like you've just mentioned about moving to tasks that you really should be doing and not your core skill, so somebody else can do that. So I've got a very well tried and tested set of processes that I do when I engage with people, all the way through decision points, pricing, all that stuff. And that's been tried and tested and developed over the years. And I have all my set emails that I send out and all the rest of it, but it's all Mandrolic. So what I've been doing recently, I've been working with Angela, and what she's done is she's got all these processes into my CRM, and that's proving great. And that's helping me keep track of stuff, because I use Trello as well, which I find fantastic. But that's more for the sort of more granular type stuff within projects. But that's helping me keep tabs on where projects are. If I'm usually pretty good, but I do slip up sometimes and think, where's that project? Did I send that? So when you move it to the next section, it gives you a load of tasks that you need to do at that juncture, and it will email me reminders and stuff as well. But the point, so that's one good thing about it, but the real overarching point of putting it into CRM is that a little bit further down the line, I can now farm that out, so I can get a VA in or something like that, and they can run that for me. So again, it's thinking about the future and growth, and getting these things in place that are going to help you sort of grow in the longer term by outsourcing it.
Yeah. And I think the big boulders and what you're saying is they've got to be your priorities, and you've got to determine what those are. Otherwise, we become wandering generalities. We just, was it George Harris says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will lead you there. Nick.
Yeah, I just want to jump back to strategy, and I think the point that Ollie made about, with Ollie's age 40 plan. I think if you don't constantly check into your strategy, or A, have a strategy, and then B, check into it and make sure that you're actually doing productive tasks that are actually focused on your strategy and moving you forwards, with those core objectives. It's all too easy to get distracted. And I did some work with Natasha By 9 months ago, and she really helped me kind of focus in on my core strategies, and then the activities below that I needed to focus on. And that's given me a lot more clarity. And I think I keep it on my desktop and I open it up every week, and I do look at it and say that other things that I'm doing this week actually going to move me forwards against the strategic objectives that I set out last year. And before that, I was far more kind of scattergun. So it's helped me kind of have more focus. Otherwise, you could just be doing non-productive tasks that aren't taking you forwards in the right direction.
Yeah.
Or moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So I think those foundations are so important, aren't they?
Who is it said that they don't open their email first thing? Who said that? Oh, because I read somewhere that I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk, might have been him, said do not open your emails until, say, midday, because especially if you're doing it first thing, because they are normally other people's priorities, not yours. So you end up doing things that other people want you to do, not what you set out to spend your time doing. And I was awake at 4:30 this morning, so I got myself a coffee, and I'm reading the Telegraph, and I'm increasingly thinking, what on earth? I'm skimming things. I don't need to read this, and I'm thinking of just completely dropping that, because it's a bad habit to get into. I compensate when I go out for a walk, although I didn't go out in the rain this morning, by listening to podcasts. But is the digital media, does it just get me political, and does I get frustrated and angry? It doesn't serve me at all. It's not part of my priority. That's one habit I need to ditch. It. One of the things that I think can be very difficult is holding yourself accountable. And I know Anne-Marie, I haven't forgotten, said that accountability partners could be quite good, whether that's in a group level or whatever. I think maybe we should discuss how we do that, because being answerable to yourself, you can cheat on yourself. You can, you don't ask yourself too many searching questions all the time. But if you've got an accountability partner, and you know that you've promised to do something, and you said, and you'd have it done by the same time next week or by the end of the month, you're more than likely to do it, especially if you know the other person is doing it. So I wonder how we can introduce that. What would be good, I think, and I don't know whether we've got time to do that. I think we have. I think it'd be good to have a breakout session to decide, or even discuss, what we believe our personal priorities are. What do we want from our business and our life balance at the moment? Have we given that any thought? What do we want?